So I got early access to Nicole, and I'm gonna be honest, she has really cute emotes, but Nicole is one of those characters who kind of feels weird when you initially take things into consideration. I mean, she's not able to show off a huge damage number like Linnea, her attack buff is not as big as Benny's, and her burst feels out of place in majority of teams. And yet, despite these remarks, Nicole still managed to surprise me in so many ways. She's great. In fact, she's quite the upgrade for several teams, especially considering the new artifact set she can utilize. And so in this video, I'm gonna review and showcase Constellation Zero Nicole. I'll provide you with a clear breakdown of all Nicole's benefits and how much value she brings to teams as a dedicated support, while at the same time, I'll also go over her current build options and whether she's free-to-play friendly or not, so you can then finally decide for yourself if she's worth pulling for. Okay, so I will be showcasing Nicole with several different catalysts such as Oathsworn Eye, Skyward Atlas, Thrilling Tales, and of course, her signature. Frankly, her damage does not matter at all. Literally, her skill deals damage once for tiny amount, and the burst, if you even bother to use it, also deals mid damage once. But we're here to witness Nicole's buffing capabilities, and her buffs depend on how much attack she has, hence why the weapons matter. Anyway, she's also equipped with the new Celestial Gift artifact set, and the Sands, Goblet, and Circlet pieces all have attack percent as main stat. Now, Celestial Gift's 2-piece bonus provides 20% energy recharge, which is fine, but the 4-set bonus is where things become interesting. After pressing the skill button, for 20 seconds, everyone in the party gains 20% damage bonus of the wielder's element. And so, since it's Nicole, that would be 20% pyro damage bonus for all. However, this bonus becomes upgraded when the team has 2 Hexerei units. And now, everyone gains 40% damage bonus of the wielder's element and 40% damage bonus of the active unit's element. So, for example, this Kniech team would have 40% pyro and 40% dendro damage bonuses active. Really strong stuff, and I'll talk more about this set in a moment. And then, yeah, her skill and burst are raised to max level 10. I didn't bother leveling her normals. They look pretty, but there's no point fighting with Nicole on field. She's a delicate lady, you know? Oh, and she's also Constellation Zero in this video, and my footage was recorded on Creator Experience server, so final content is subject to change. Alright, let's first start by examining the most crucial part of Nicole's kit, her elemental skill. When tapped, it deals a little bit of damage, produces 5 pyro particles, which is quite good, and then for 20 seconds, a pyro shield is created, and most importantly, everyone in the team gains an attack bonus by converting 15% of Nicole's attack. At talent level 10, the maximum amount is 600 attack, or basically this caps out when Nicole has 4000 attack. Also, I just noticed she gains this halo on her head when the skill is active. But anyway, the big question is how easy it is to reach this 4k attack cap. Well, here's a quick table of reference, but basically, it is possible to reach it with Skyward Atlas, which is the standard 5-star catalyst, while with Oathsworn Eye or Flowing Purity, both of which provide a lot of attack stats, can help reach around 540 attack or so. And then, yeah, Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers barely reaches 430 attack, but the trade-off, of course, is that Thrilling Tales also provides a separate attack buff, which is quite big, but not as reliable as Nicole's attack buff coming from the skill. So you don't need to pull for her signature if you care about reaching maximum attack. It can be done with Skyward Atlas, and honestly, the 4-star options like Oathsworn Eye is also perfectly fine. Like, if you look at the damage improvement differences, the gap is not that huge, and to be clear, the biggest benefit actually comes not from the highest attack stat, but what the passive actually provides. Thrilling Tales gives a separate attack buff, so it inflates the first rotation. Oathsworn Eye provides a ton of energy, and Signature essentially gives 26% damage buff to active unit and 13% for off-field units, which is why her signature actually comes out on top, but not by that much. Oh, and her signature has this additional ability. When she opens chests, Nicole gains 14 energy. Pretty interesting. Still, we also need to talk about her shield. It's fat, like really fat. Ironically, the scaling is exactly the same as Innefa's shield, but because Nicole has a ton more attack, which the shield scales from, it ends up around 17,000 thickness with Thrilling Tales and 22,000 with her signature, but it can even reach upwards of 24k HP thickness in C6 Prune teams, or teams with other attack buffers. Point is, this is a highly comfortable quality of life you gain by just pressing the skill. Now, the skill also has 2 passives tied to it, and the first one basically states that during the skill, the active unit receives additional 300 attack buff. But there's a catch. If it's a Hexerei unit, they instantly gain this buff. However, anyone else who is not a Hexerei unit only gain this 300 attack buff after 3 seconds after you swap to them. So this is kind of a bummer for certain teams like with Mawika because you instantly want to cast her burst when swapping to her. Same goes for Arlecchino, her first normal attacks after swapping are the hardest hitting ones. However, some units like Kinich can play around this, just wait like a second after filling up his Night Soul and unleash the skill shot. And it's definitely worth waiting because the shot in this showcase is about 15% better, and this becomes even more relevant if you have his first constellation, which powers up the first shot. Otherwise, you could also just cast his burst when you swap to. But yeah, you will see this visual effect happen the moment the 300 attack buff is active. As I said, this happens immediately when you swap to Hexerei unit, and after that 3-second delay, you can see it happen here too with Kinich. Oh, and most importantly, this buff is only available for the active unit, so if you swap out, they also lose the buff. Although, the second passive states that whenever anybody in the team deals elemental damage, Nicole actually gains that 300 attack buff herself. Funnily enough, since her skill deals damage, she actually immediately gains that 300 attack buff plus her own buffing. However, this 300 attack buff does not improve her actual attack buff. Sounds like a mouthful, but that's how it is. Now, finally, this leaves us with the burst, and it's a peculiar one. It costs 60 energy, and when casted, Nicole creates a stairway to heaven because obviously she's a Led Zeppelin fan. And then she deals some damage, but nobody cares about it. What happens after, though, is quite interesting. You see, for 20 seconds, she enters Silent Contemplation mode, which essentially allows her to trigger up to 4 coordinated attacks, but they can only happen every 3 seconds. And how it works is that whenever an active unit deals damage, an astral projection will appear and deal 180% of the active unit's attack, and the damage will be based on their elements. But as you can imagine, this is a really lackluster hit. For example, in this Risley team, the coordinated attack hit deals roughly 19,000 damage, which is like a single punch from the Risley man himself. Not only that, even if the projection deals cryo damage on a burning target here, it does not melt. So in other words, these projections do not trigger reactions. So, does this justify waiting for 2 seconds of Nicole's burst animation, which results in about 80,000 damage at best? I don't think so. But here's where things get interesting. You see, after completing Witch's homework, Nicole unlocks her Hexerei talent, which states, now her projections damage from the burst are increased by 300% of Nicole's attack. And wow, Nicole has a ton of attack, so that's amazing! Except there's a small catch. Only on-field Hexerei units who triggered the projection gain this massive extra multiplier. On top of that, visually you will see actual projections of the Hexerei unit appear, instead of Nicole who shows up for non-Hexerei on-field units. But yeah, this leads to actually good damage because, for example, in Varka teams, we can see the projection dealing 104,000 damage. And this happens 4 times, so quite a big boost. However, keep in mind, this damage mostly depends on Nicole's own attack stat. Like the critical damage and other stats are used by the active unit, but the scaling of extra attack comes from Nicole, sorta like how Shenhe's quills work. Overall, the burst is not worth using with an on-fielder who is not a Hexerei unit, but definitely worth activating when the on-fielder is someone like Varka or any other Hexerei unit, like Razor. On the flip side, at least this means with a non-Hexerei main DPS, you don't need to build energy recharge on Nicole, since then you just tap her skill and swap out. So it's not that bad, but the fact her burst is basically reserved for Hexerei units is an interesting choice. But that's pretty much it when it comes to her kit, so putting it all together, Nicole offers the following benefits: a team-wide 430 to 600 attack buff, an additional 300 attack buff for the active unit, a really thick shield, 5 pyro particles, which is quite good, coordinated attacks from the burst, which are only worth using with Hexerei on fielder, and then she can also utilize the new artifact set, which gives 40% damage boost to pyro and another element, plus Thrilling Tales of the Dragon Slayers or her signature, which provide additional boosting. Most importantly, her buffing lasts 20 seconds, which is a really long time, and enough for majority of rotations in the game. So all in all, she actually does quite a lot when it really just boils down to pressing a single button, 2 if you want to use her burst. So the big question is, how impactful is she, and which teams benefit the most from her? Well, let's find out. Alright, let's first start with the man with the chiseled jaw. Previously, his best team was Durin, Venti, and Benny. The most logical unit Nicole can replace here is Benito, and so when looking at the results, you'll first notice that Varka is still dealing about 15% more damage with Benny, who is C6 and has 674 attack weapon to maximize his buffing. While in the meantime, Nicole is on the Celestial Gift set and using Oathsworn Eye Catalyst. So, how can she be worse than Bennett? Well, actually she's not, because we also need to take into account her projections, which results in about 380,000 extra damage. Plus, she's also buffing Venti's and Durin's attack, unlike Bennett, who can only buff active units. So overall, she actually ends up improving the team's performance by about 10 to 14%. It's not a huge upgrade, but consider another aspect. Varka is shielded. I don't know about you, I hate playing around Bennett's circle, and I hate it even more when Varka gets knocked around. Not only that, Nicole's buff duration is long enough for Varka to afford to make mistakes, unlike Benny's burst, which usually even gets casted before Venti. Plus, since Varka is using her Serpent Spine, good luck maintaining those stacks with Benny, whereas with Nicole, it's super easy, barely an inconvenience. Oh, and I forgot to mention something. When using Benny, I actually gave Durin the new Celestial Gift set, so technically Varka's team was already improved when compared to Nicole. Like, the thing is, if you're not gonna get Nicole, but you still play Varka, this Celestial Gift set is absolutely an upgrade regardless. And remember, if you really want to push Varka's personal damage further, you can slap on Nicole Thrilling Tales, although the Astral Projections will deal lower damage, since she ends up with a lot less attack. Although, more or less, its performance ends up about the same as Oathsworn Eye, or worse if you can time TTDS buff on next rotation onwards. Still, there's one more tiny little thing I haven't mentioned yet. Prune. You see, Prune actually helps elevate Varka and the team's DPS even further, but it kinda depends on several factors. Now, I initially planned to make her own separate video, but long story short, Prune can provide up to 50% damage buff for the whole team, and 30% attack buff exclusively for Animo Hexerei DPS units, such as Varka. On top of that, if you unlock her C6, she can then provide an additional 350 flat attack boost for the active unit and herself. Now, funnily enough, while we can see C0 Prune bumps up Varka's personal damage by about 11% when in a team with Nicole, you have to keep in mind she's replacing Venti here. And usually at C0, she's more of a side grade, but at C2, things start to improve for the better. Now, she and Nicole further boost team's damage by about 5 to 8%, and if Prune is at C6, well, now we're talking about around 17% higher damage. So that's Prune in a nutshell. She will be available on Nicole's banner, but obviously, pulling for featured 4-star units is a notoriously random strat to go for, so please remember that. Anyway, as I was looking through the footage, I noticed a lot of showcases with Nicole had Durin, and this got me thinking. They both are really good together. Obviously, Durin provides off-field pyro damage, some resistance shredding, and enables Hexerei resonance. But if you don't have him, then you can actually just go with Nicole and Benny together, while the Animo unit should be either Venti, Sucrose, or Prune. And the thing is, while this team won't be as good without Durin, it's still pretty strong. Plus, if you have Prune, especially if you unlock her second constellation, now it's a pretty strong comp. But yeah, moving over, what about other teams? Well, another big winner is Kniech. In a team like this one with Emily and Durin, this team felt really good because Emily and Durin still contribute a fair share of damage. In fact, Emily's damage is quite big when you give Durin Deepwood Set, so it really does seem like Nicole shines best in teams where multiple units can take advantage of her attack boosting. But you could also replace Emily with Iansan, which skyrockets Kniech's damage even further when she's on Cinder's set, or heck, you can just go with Benny again. Just remember, since Kniech is the on-fielder, don't bother using Nicole's burst. Just do a quick skill cast and swap out. Then we have Hyper Carry Venti teams. The best one right now would be Venti, Durin, C6 Farazan, and Nicole. But if for some reason you have godlike luck or godlike gacha funds and end up with C6 Prune, she's slightly worse than C6 Farazan, at least from my initial testing. But if you don't have C6 Farazan, hey, you Venti enjoyers are eating good this batch. Now, I also really like this team with Wriothesley. It's a simple rotation, set up Durin's burst and skill, cast Emily's skill or burst, go for Nicole's skill, and then swap to Wriothesley, and punch the Riz out of your enemies. Simple, fun, and effective, especially since attack buffing from Nicole here benefits all of her teammates. Moving over to some Overload team comps, they are also quite happy to see Nicole on their side, especially this Klee team comp. It felt really good here, but keep in mind, if you already have Durin, then I would say for teams driven by Arlecchino and Lin, Winnie, she feels more of a side grade compared to Durin, and it's mostly because of how her buffing ends up being less effective since they are not Hexerei units. As for Electro Overload teams, as I said, Razor felt pretty nice. Not much theory crafting is done for him these days, but I believe Nicole is a direct upgrade for him, which is quite nice. Other electro carries such as Clarence sadly have trouble utilizing Nicole since she needs to replace a Pyro applicator, and her own Pyro application is bad. However, Navia keeps on winning with tears of joy. This team of Nicole and Albedo actually performs quite well, like it's not as crazy as the current Lunar teams, and this team variation won't be as good as Lunar Crystallized team with Columbina, but hey, not everyone has every character, so Nicole is still a decent choice here. Anyway, I don't want to just keep listing all existing teams because at the end of the day, Nicole is a support and she fits into many teams. But what do you miss out on if Nicole is not on a team with another Hexerei unit? Well, her signature won't provide half of its buff to off-field units, although this won't matter if you don't have her signature, and then her burst's astral projection won't be powered up. But you wouldn't use it anyway unless the on-field unit is Hexerei. However, when it comes to Nicole's best artifact set, sadly, Celestial Gift is really crappy if the team doesn't have 2 Hexerei units, since then Nicole only provides 20% Pyro damage bonus with this set, and yeah, that's not good. In fact, all of her calculations today I've showcased really lean a lot on this new set, so I would argue if you want to really utilize her buffing, she definitely needs another Hexerei unit on the team to help enable Celestial Gift set bonus. So, what do I think about this Mind Speaker? Well, I actually spent a lot of time pondering this, because without vertical investments at C0, Nicole is a comfy option for a lot of teams in the game, even if her attack buffing is not that massive. But as I was recording her footage, I noticed how easy it was to get everything done on first take. Seriously, when you have a really thick shield, life becomes much easier. You don't get knocked around, and rotations just happen without any interruptions. On top of that, as I said, while her buffing compared to Benny's or Eonsan's is not as impressive, they specialize in boosting single target, while Nicole does it for the whole team. So if you play team comps where multiple units contribute similar amounts of damage, Nicole shines best in these teams. The only downside I can think of right now would be the requirement to run her with another Hexerei unit in order to fully utilize the new Celestial Gift artifact set, and the fact her burst is strictly only worth using with a Hexerei on-field unit. Although on the flip side, it is kinda nice I can just forget about ER stat when using her with non-Hexerei DPS units. Just use her skill button and swap out. Again, she does bring a lot of benefits to the team as shown previously, but they aren't super crazy. Well, not unless you start obtaining her constellations, but I might make a separate video about this if you're interested in that. Otherwise, at C0, I'd say she's a good unit to pull for if you want extra comfort, or if you basically want another Zhongli's thick shield, but now you get to boost attack as well. Oh, and I guess you can also use her ability outside combat to locate chests. So if you want a walking compass, go for it. Anyway, thanks for watching the video, bye!